Bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Welcome, Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, man. How you doing? Today's Monday, May 2nd, 2022. For KJCR, the Game Changer and NX Networks, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, we've got a huge week coming up here on Fade to Black, and starting it off tonight with very special guest, John Greenwald of the Black Vault is here. Got lots of news and things that we're going to be covering tonight with John, so stand by for that. He'll be with us at the bottom of the hour. Tomorrow night, Jason Quitt joins us. Tomorrow night, Jason and I are going to be talking about astral and lucid dreaming. Yeah, man. I cannot wait for that. That's tomorrow night. And then Wednesday night, Richard Dolan is here for the interview. That's right. That's the great thing about, this new format that we've got going on now. It's been almost a month. Right? Okay, but I get to revisit all of my favorite guests on screen at the same time with all of you. And so this week, John Greenwald, first time. We've done this together. Jason Quitt, first time. Richard Dolan, first time. It's going to be like that for a while. I can't wait. Just going down the list. All my favorite guests. And it's kind of like a little reboot for me, and this is just amazing. So, huge week here on Fade to Black. Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. So we've got a great week coming up, and now I am pretty busy this year, and I've got a couple of other events that I'm going to be weaving in pretty shortly. I thought I was going to have everything done this week, but coming up, I will be speaking at the X Conference in just 2 weeks, May 13th and 14th. Today's May 2nd, so it's less than 2 weeks away. I'll be speaking on Friday nights, and it's an online event, and this week, I'm going to give away some tickets and stuff for all of you Fadernauts, and I think we'll do that on Thursday night for Fader night. Okay, so that's coming up in a couple of weeks, May 13th and 14th. And then right after that, coming up on June 18th, I'll be hosting Disclosure Fest, one-day event right here in Los Angeles at the Los Angeles Historic State Park right here in downtown Los Angeles. And then coming up this October, I will be in Egypt with Billy Carson. Again, space is very, very limited. If you would like to go with us to Egypt, visit forbiddenknowledge.com right now for the complete schedule and info. Links to everything, all of our sponsors, everything, all of my events, everything is in the description box below. We've got it up in social media. And of course, it's over at jimmychurchradio.com. Okay. All right. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Yeah, man. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. And I spent a little bit too much time surfing Twitter this weekend. It was more on my weekend coming up in just a bit. What was I going to say? Ozark. Ozark was released, I think it was Friday. And I was done with it Friday, Saturday morning. Did you guys peep out Ozark? And it was, wow. It was an ending that, spoiler alert, I'm not going to give anything away. It was an ending that I expected and I actually got. I felt that it was the only way that it could play out. And so that's it. I'm just going to leave that right there. I'm still in the middle of all of these TV series right now. I'm in the middle of Halo. I'm in the middle of Slow Horses. I'm in the middle of Better Call Saul. What else am I in the middle of? It's like I'm in all of these TV series, just so much to keep up with. And I put everything Outer Range. What's that other show called with Josh Brolin? I think that's what it's called, Outer Range. That too, right? I put everything on hold for Ozark. And wow, what a great weekend. And I had to work all weekend, and a couple of things on that point. I was busy all weekend, and I thought, you know what, everything can hold until I'm done with Ozark. It was like that. I just couldn't stop. I could not stop watching. But I got work done. And while I was working, I ended up sometimes, I'll talk more about this in just a minute. I run stuff in the background while I'm working. I like to listen to music. I did a lot of docking this weekend, and then I'll have videos running in the background. And while I was working, and suggestions come in, and there's autoplay happening, and I started watching robot videos. More on that in just a bit. So that was my weekend, which led to a pretty crazy dream last night. So more on that in just a minute. Okay. All right. Follow me on Twitter. I was going to post this stuff on Twitter too. I was going through these profound mind movements, this existential movement of stuff that was outside influences. It just, wow, man. It came to a gurgling, bubbling head last night. More on that in just a minute. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. The sandbox is hashtag F2B on Twitter. Watch Invincible on Amazon. Yeah, you want to throw something else on the pile, Ken? Like, I need something else on the pile. I'm trying to keep my head straight right now. I've got, and I just came off of Yellowstone, and you get into this Outer Range, and I feel like I'm watching the same TV series. It's like everything's blending. It's all blending together. Hashtag F2BQ on Twitter is Fade to Black Questions. Let's get to the breaking news. The UFO briefings on Capitol Hill have begun, but the lawmakers receiving the latest secret briefings on UFOs say that our national security agencies are still not taking the reports of UFOs and UAPs seriously. I read Brian Bender's article on Politico today about this. The congressional briefings come 4 months after Congress passed the National Defense Authorization Act requiring the Pentagon to create the Anomaly Surveillance and Resolution Office. But some members of Congress and their staff are beginning to air their dissatisfaction with the progress, and the continued uncertainty is prompting members of Congress to increase pressure on both the Pentagon and spy agencies to do more than merely collect UAP reports. Next week, we'll get the full update from Lou Elizondo. He's going to be right here on Fade to Black. We'll find out what's going on. All right, I think Brian Bender's a little bit late to the party on this one. He's about 30 days late, but the article is there if you want to go and check it out. It's on Politico. I don't often cite Wikipedia as a primary source. I don't do it. But right now, I am. Because the Wikimedia Foundation has officially ceased accepting donations in the form of crypto as of yesterday, Sunday. The announcement comes a couple of weeks after Wikipedia editors and others active in the WMF community voted to end crypto donations, citing the environmental toll on the predatory nature and the scamminess of digital currency, their words. All of this back in April. That final vote tally was 232 to 94, or about 71% in favor of the proposal to deny crypto giving, and followed 3 months of debate and deliberation. Other nonprofit groups like the World Wildlife Fund and the Mozilla Foundation, Mozilla Thunderbird, have also recently backed away from blockchain donations and fundraising efforts. Very interesting. I just saw a documentary last night, Trust No One. Have you guys seen that yet? Check it out. It's called Trust No One. I think it's on Netflix. Check that out. That's crazy. It's about Canada and Bitcoin. Go watch it. It's called Trust No One. Well, the White House is building on its electric vehicle goal with the $3 billion investment today aimed at boosting the United States supply of lithium-ion batteries through the bipartisan infrastructure package. The move is aimed at fighting climate change, but also to make the U.S. more energy independent and secure, officials said, as Russia's invasion of Ukraine has disrupted global oil markets. All right. The largest active wildfire in the United States has forced thousands from their homes in New Mexico in the drought-stricken Southwest. The blaze, dubbed the Calf Canyon Fire, has consumed more than 121,000 acres, or more than half the area of New York City, tearing through centuries-old settlements and vacation homes in forested mountains just 30 miles northeast of Santa Fe. Our thoughts are with everybody in New Mexico. Let's get this show cracking. I did it again. On this day in history, 1933, the Loch Ness Monster is sighted for the first time when a local couple who claimed to have seen an enormous animal rolling and plunging on the surface, and it was reported in the Inverness Courier, the newspaper. Wow, 1933. Crazy. Fader fact. All right, here you go. This goes out to Patrick, the elf. The white center in Oreo cookies does not contain any dairy. The FDA does not let Oreos say cream if it contains no cream at all. It's a mix of high fructose corn syrup, soy lecithin, artificial flavors, and palm and or canola oil. And it's made white with titanium dioxide. Yeah. I bet it would catch on fire. Why does it taste so good? I'm going to leave that right there. Tonight, very special guest, John Greenwald of the Black Vault is here. Tomorrow night, Jason Quitt is with us. We're going to be talking about astral and lucid dreaming with Jason tomorrow night. Then Wednesday night, Richard Dolan is here for The Interview. That's right. That's Wednesday night. What a great week on the show. Man, they are vegan. Ken Priest. Oreos are vegan. I bet, you know what, with an ingredient list like that, I think you can go vegan, right? High fructose corn syrup, soy lecithin, artificial flavor, palm and or canola oil. Titanium dioxide's definitely vegan. There's no animal components to that at all. So there you go. Vegetarian. Caprice, man. Love that guy. Kaz says, yes, they're vegan. Really? Yeah. You won't wear a leather belt, but you'll consume titanium dioxide. Oh, man. I'm just going to leave that right there. John Greenwald is with us tonight. Tomorrow night, Jason Quit. Thursday night is Wednesday night's Richard Dolan. Thursday is another Fader night with open lines all night long. All right. Oh, man. River Moon Coffee. Today, I installed a new coffee maker machine. Pretty nice. Brewed a pretty good cup of coffee, too. And it's got a stainless steel carafe. Yeah. Oh, man. River Moon Coffee. rivermoonwellness.com. Oh, man, that's a good cup of coffee right there. And I thought my old machine was good. Just one of those, I was in the mood. And I pulled the trigger and I was hopeful, and it all turned out to be good. It was a good day. All right. An update. Should I sneak this out now? Tomorrow I pick up the Fender Mini Strat. It's ready. Yeah, so tomorrow night on the show, you guys are going to be the first to see it. I'm going to make a video and put all of this stuff together because it's in a Hydrox for the originals. I'm going to put together a video. It's a very special guitar, but you guys are going to get to see it tomorrow night. I cannot wait. It was one of those things. I got the call today, and I was so busy. You know, it's like an hour drive there and back, 2 hours. And I was like, man, just screw it. Just go. And I couldn't pull it off. Otherwise, I would have. Anyway, I'll have that tomorrow night. Okay. Now, more about this weekend. River Moon Coffee. Robots. Yeah, so I'm working this weekend. I got Ozark out of the way and got back to work. Right, 8 hours of my life. It was worth it though. Ozark. Anyway, so I'm in here working, and I get sucked into in between listening to the first 3 Dokken albums like twice each. It's so good. Robot videos. And so I ended up watching a bunch of the recent stuff in robot tech, and the advancements in robot tech is starting to get pretty freaky. I posted a few videos here and there, but really, honestly, this stuff is getting really, really good. And so I'm sitting here and watching this stuff, and my mind starts to wander a little bit. And I started to think that we used to depend on science fiction to get us there, our imagination. But now, pretty much, it's all reality. Oh, it is. It's all reality. Then it hit me. It's not the robots that freak me out. It's the AI. Now, stay with me on this. It's not the AI. It's an AI without emotion or feelings. You tie that into a robot, that's not going to take anything into consideration. I've got kids. Right? I've got kids. I've got a family. Rips your head off. And no emotion, no feelings. I rescue puppies. I have a puppy rescue for miniature schnauzers. Rips your arms and your legs off. And, that's the AI that freaks me out. And now I started to go a little further with this. Remember the robot in Lost in Space? Remember that? Okay. You remember his name? His name, Astronaut Robot Robinson, Series Class YM3 Model B9 General Utility Non-Theorizing Environmental Control Robot, otherwise known as Blinky Rodney, also known simply as the Astrobot YM3 B9 Gunther. All right. That robot, we were okay. We were okay with it because YM3B9 had feelings. He laughed once. Remember when he was cracking jokes? He was the comedian robot. And he had feelings, right? Danger, Will Robinson, and we were okay. That version of a robot is okay. Right now, you also remember when YM3B9 Gunther went haywire. You remember that? And there's a couple of episodes where Dr. Smith wrestled control of the robot, and once that good side was gone, suddenly he was terrifying. All right? So that's what you want. You want an AI with feelings. But is that dangerous? Right? So as I'm going through these robot videos, I started to think about a robot dog watching my house. And, I've seen the Boston Dynamics robot dog, and I started to think about that. That was last night. Then I went to bed. And I had this dream about that robot dog and my house. And this was the dream. Dreams, I hate it when people go, man, I had this dream. Let me tell you about my dream. And as soon as you hear that, you're like, you don't want to hear about anybody's dreams. It's just, it's nowhere. But I woke up last night in a cold sweat, and so much so that I actually swung my feet off the bed and just sat there, turned on the light, and had to take a few deep breaths, because the dream was, I go and I don't think the dream had an end, by the way, but I go and I buy this robot dog, and they tell me, yep, he knows you. You don't have to worry about a thing, but anybody that he'll tear them apart. No problem. I was like, okay. So I bring the dog home. Dog is acting like a dog, sitting on the couch, out in the backyard, doing its thing, patrolling, and everything is fine. And I'm sitting on my couch, and the dog comes in, looks at me, and bites my leg. And doesn't just bite my leg, it's my left calf. Grabs my left calf and does that thing. Right? It rips me to shreds. And I kick the dog, and it gets off of me, and I get outside, and I lock the dog in the house, and I take off running in the woods. This is the dream. And somehow the dog gets out of the house and is now chasing me forever. And this is when I woke up. The dream was about, well, there was that was the beginning. The dream was about me not sleeping up 4 days running. And this dog, robot dog, is not sleeping. And I know that. And I can't stop and rest ever. And this thing is pursuing me. And that all happened. Okay, so hold on a minute. So the dog catches me. This is when I woke up. The dog catches me and it bites the back of my shirt. I'm running. It bites the back of my shirt and starts swinging me around like this. I mean, in a full circle. Right? Like my feet are off the ground. And he's swinging me and I'm in the air. And I can feel my shirt being pulled in the back. And anyway, and I'm being swung around in the air. And I freak and I wake up. And I was like, that was the most realistic, crazy dream like ever. All because of Lost in Space and where I got sucked into this AI thing. We can't have, there's Terminator and there's this, or no emotion. Right? Terminator was a killing machine, right? And any of these were just killing machines, no emotion. And that's what got me sucked into this thing and had me think about Robbie the Robot and how Robbie was actually cool until and then. And I rode this thing out. So anyway, I took a couple of hours off. I wasn't thinking about robots for a couple of hours. I don't know how. This stuck with me to bed, to dream state. And I actually woke up terrified over a robot dog. It was too real. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, John Greenwald of the Black Vault is with us. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are posting this stuff. This dude kicking the robot dog, that's a bad move right there. I learned my lesson. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back after this short break with our guest, John Greenwald. Stay with us.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net.
Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Do you have an interest in the paranormal? Then you'll love the unxnetwork.com. The X is your streaming audio and video for everything supernatural, strange, and mysterious, like UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, and so much more. From hosts like Jimmy Church, Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, and Christina Gomez. Visit the unxnetwork.com show page for a complete list of all the paranormal programs you'll find on the X. Be sure to follow us on Twitter for updates at KUNXDB. Follow our Facebook group, UNX Network. Find the podcast on Spotify, iHeart, Audible, and Apple Podcast. It's time. It's new. It's the X.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Manson. You're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, John Greenwald is here. Yeah, man. We've got a lot to discuss. I went over some of the headlines that we're going to be going through tonight. Another great dynamic conversation coming up with John. He began researching the U.S. government in 1996 at the age of 15, targeting the CIA, the FBI, the Pentagon, the Air Force, Army, Navy, NSA, and the DIA by utilizing the Freedom of Information Act. He accumulated an astonishing number of documents on topics related to UFOs, the JFK assassination, chemical, biological, and nuclear weapons, and top secret aircraft. He named that online archive the Black Vault, the largest private online collection anywhere in the world with millions of pages of material. His books include Beyond UFO Secrecy, Inside the Black Vault, and Secrets of the Black Vault. Everything you need to know about John is over at theblackvault.com. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, John Greenwald. John, it's you and I together on the screen.
Yeah. Welcome to the 21st century doing video. I'm excited for you. But I will admit, I'm a little upset I can't wear my PJs because that's generally what I do.
Yeah, no more. And you know what? I kind of miss it.
My PJs?
John's got this Road Runner onesie that he wears.
Yes. I like my Shark one better. That has the That's
actually pretty cool too. I've seen them all. Listen, we've got a bunch of serious stuff to talk about tonight, but I wanted to actually. And by the way, this is very, very cool. And thank you. But the thing is we have had so many conversations over the years, and the audience never got to see you. And so here we go. This is really cool. First of many shows to come, of course. But I wanted to ask you this. I know that you were listening to the intro of the show about AI and robots.
Yes.
And you've been at the front end of technology and computers, since the beginning. It's been your life. What do you fear about AI, if anything at all?
Humans need to program it to stop. And what I mean by that is you can't essentially teach morality. You can't teach them certain human emotions, so you need to program it. Now you can fool, and trust me, I love this topic, but you essentially need to program a point where you say, don't do this. Because the minute a thinking machine truly starts thinking for itself, there are human elements that go along with our thinking where we stop. We stop at certain things. We don't do certain things. We don't explore certain avenues, or if we do, we realize, oh, we went too far. We need to program AI to do the same, because if you let that slip and you have a true thinking machine that can utilize a CPU that will be more powerful than the human mind, if it can think for itself, but it doesn't have some of those human emotions, we're in trouble. And it sounds like a sci-fi novel or blockbuster movie, but I mean it. I mean, they need to figure out that stopgap, because if they don't, we could absolutely find ourselves with a unbeatable enemy. And it's a fascinating it's a fascinating topic that I'm not sure if we've talked about it before on the air, but in short, got a lot of background with it, producing a couple shows about alien intelligence. And some may ask, how do those two go hand in hand? Well, a lot of scientists explore the fact that an alien intelligence, should they communicate with us, will actually most likely be a machine intelligence, or one that gets here. And that's why we explored machine intelligence a lot, because that is exactly what we're doing. We have artificial intelligence doing things on other planets right now. Basic things, but it's AI nonetheless. And so when you start sending machines out that can just make those decisions, that's where you have to teach it to stop. Because if you tell it to reproduce itself, how will it know when to stop destroying things to get all of those elements to reproduce itself? And those are the types of stopgaps that they need to figure out. Don't get me started, Jimmy. I love that topic.
Listen. I think one of the reasons why I went through this nightmare, it was truly a nightmare last night, was that when you start to, as a human, look at how the physical attributes of balance, of walking, that are programmed in, because we can balance ourselves, right? And we as humans see this in other humans, how we walk, or dogs, or try to knock a cat over. Can't do it, right? And so this element of that, well, all of that is what you want to have programmed into these robots for balance, for control. And so when you program that in effectively with all the gyroscopes and the things, and there's so many sensors and stuff that are operating at the same time, but when you see it, you see the human. It can be the most mechanical looking thing. It doesn't have to look like a human, but it moves human, and it walks human, and it jumps human. Or this Boston Robotics dog, it doesn't, but it acts like a dog, right? It's this crazy thing that I think I took to. It's like my biggest fear. So if you have that and you don't have emotion as part of that AI, where it's only a one-sided thing, that is a scary thought.
Yeah.
Right? You could probably, if somebody's pointing a gun at you, John, you might be able to at least talk your way out of it, right? Because you're talking to a human that's got emotions, right? So maybe you've got a chance. But with an AI that doesn't have that in its programming, there is no chance.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. You got to figure out those stopgaps, that you have to teach them that, because if you only give them so much, there will be an intelligence where they can go beyond that without you. And they won't, they may, but they likely won't teach themselves those elements of stopping or not pulling that trigger in your scenario, or whatever it may be. And that is one of the more fascinating aspects of AI, that even though we're just getting into really the infant stages of it, even though these things are incredibly advanced, when you see the video of like Boston Dynamics and stuff like that, they're only advanced because we interpret that as advanced. When it comes to AI, that's infant level. I mean, the implications behind this is staggering. And the one thought that I want to give you really quick is that we as humans don't actually have to master AI at all. We don't have to create the perfect specimen at all. We just have to make it good enough to start thinking for itself, making the decisions, and it will perfect itself with digital offspring, version 2.0, if you want to call it that. And it will understand, oh, this is wrong. This I shouldn't be doing this because it's not producing the result that I want. I can reprogram myself and make it better. And again, these all sound like science fiction scenarios here, but really it's science reality, and that's what we're facing with, that you just have to make it good enough. An imperfect AI, because the human mind is essentially not perfect. An imperfect AI could essentially start perfecting itself, and then it doesn't need us. It just goes off and it will do whatever it wants. And that's, again, going back to that stopgap. You need to figure out how to make it stop and have an off switch, or you are going to have a War Games or Terminator becomes a documentary, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And in Terminator 2, we'll get off this subject because this actually
it's one of my favorite movies.
But this dovetails nicely into the Nimitz, and I'll tell you why in just a second.
Uh-oh.
But it's
you're going to get us in trouble if we start talking about AI and the Nimitz.
Is Terminator 2, the T-1000, he's tinier and skinnier than Schwarzenegger, right? But he was like infinitely as scary because he was a killing machine that was not going to stop. Remember when he's running in the parking garage, right?
Yeah.
and right, that was scary. He was not going to stop, and that's the part, right? That's what made him so scary. You know, you've got Schwarzenegger, right? Right, and it was like he was defenseless against this guy. And so on that same point, back to your point, that you need the AI to just be good enough. And Isaac Arthur was on this show, the physicist, a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the Tic Tac. And he said, we were talking about von Neumann probes, and could the Tic Tac be just that? And he said, let me tell you something, Jimmy. He said, the reason why that's a possibility is the characteristics of the Tic Tac were not smart. They were dumb. And that's why I think it could be alien AI. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, it was just simply programmed to avoid trouble. That's it. That's all it was doing. It's dumb. It's going to come here and collect its data here on planet Earth and go and do its thing and avoid problems. And that's what it did. It just simply avoided the F-18s. It didn't do anything hostile. It just protected itself. And I stopped and thought that was one of the smartest things I've heard about the Tic Tac yet, was that it was a dumb, it's a dumb version of AI, just simply meant to avoid problems.
In the same respect, it could be incredibly smart, and it knew that it just didn't want to engage. And that could be absolutely, and I don't want to sound like a skeptic or debunker here, but that could absolutely be the human technology. I get myself in a lot of trouble when I say that there's a huge possibility that the Nimitz was human tech and a classified experiment. But to be honest with you, I stand by that just simply because I think all of the details would fit. And many people fire back and say, how could the military personnel, the pilots, be fooled by that? They didn't recognize it. And that's okay. It's not disrespectful to say that they just didn't recognize it. They're just not read in. And you go back decades before the B-2 stealth bomber, the F-117, was acknowledged, and you tell them a flying wing with stealth capability is flying today. A lot of people would tell you, you're nuts. There's no way. And yet it was in development for decades before we ever even realized it was there. And I think it was Jack Northrop way back in the day who wanted a flying wing to actually fly. And many people said, you'll never get a flying wing to fly. But essentially we did, we achieved it, and it's amazing. So we have to look at it in the respect that this was a training exercise. And again, people hate me for bringing it up, but it is a huge possibility that that technology was our own, and whether it be AI or whatever it might be, the description that your guest gave about it being dumb would essentially be that test that you're being met with F-18s without weapons, the best of the best. The best men and women are up there flying our Navy and Air Force jets. So you're putting them against the best of the best, but there's no immediate danger that they're just going to fire at each other above the Pacific Ocean. But rather, can you figure out what it is? Can you track it? Can you chase it? Can you catch it? Can you figure out what it was? And those are the types of things that, for me, looking at history, scream a potential experiment. Because then when you try and fill in the blank, take human tech out, put alien tech in. Why would they do that? And it's just because they're watching a training exercise. To be honest with you, no. What are they going to really learn? I'm like, that to me is where you really get into dissecting an intelligent civilization that can traverse the stars. Would they come here and want to go, how does an F-18 work? Truth be told, they probably wouldn't care because they have that technology that far surpasses us. So that doesn't mean there's part of these phenomena, again, because I think that there's multiple aspects to it. But this doesn't define everything. And I think that that's where people get upset, is that they think, oh, well, if you dismiss this case or that case as military tech, classified tech, or a balloon, ergo, you have to dismiss all of it as military tech or balloon. And that's not true. You have to drill down case by case. And with the Nimitz, I can't get out of that yet. And I think that there's a big possibility that we are dealing with some type of classified technology. Plus, there's a testing ground not too far away from where the Nimitz carrier group was at. So you've got that to put in there as well.
Sure. And let me ask you this. With all of your document collection that has gone on since, let's just focus on December 2017 to now, when we first started to hear about this. What is your assessment? Was the incident real in that UFO, our tech, whatever, but was there a tic-tac shaped craft going from 80,000 feet down to sea level, raining UFOs, and then zipping away? The incident itself, did it happen?
Well, I believe the incident absolutely happened. I've got no doubt about that. Did it happen in the way that was seen on instrumentation and visual recollection? And that's where the question marks come in. It's no secret that not all the witnesses that have come forward all have the same exact story, but from different vantage points. They don't. There's varying degrees of the story. That's okay. That's human nature, but we have to figure out what really is there. Now, did this craft come down from 80,000 to near sea level in seconds? To be honest with you, that sounds like some type of technology to emulate that, but maybe not necessarily actually do it. And again, this always makes me cringeworthy because a lot of people don't want to think about that. They want to believe that those that have come forward are absolutely 100% accurate. I believe they're truthful. Don't get me wrong. But whether or not it truly happened that way is something we all should feel comfortable questioning. And I think some people equate that, well, you're insulting them, right? You're putting them down. You're insulting their highly trained intelligence and backgrounds. And I just don't see it that way. I've got more respect for the men and women in our military than anyone. And I think it's okay to say, you know what, they may not be privy to every classified platform that's out there. And I think in the same respect, the military does not brief every pilot, radar operator, fill in the blank that may be witness to something like this. So sadly, I think that many people, again, equate that to an insult, and it's really not. It's that we are dealing with a 2004 incident. We have varying degrees of witness testimony. We can't get away from the fact that one of the pilots, David Fravor, said that the witness testimony from some on the Princeton didn't happen. Why would he say that? And so that supports the fact that they all don't agree on the way that this all unfolded. So 2004, now it's 2022. Will we know the answer? I'm not sure. I mean, if it is classified tech, we may never know. We may know 10 years from now. We may know next week. I really don't know. But I think it's like one of those Roswell things where it'll go on for years and years, and there'll be these warring factions on trying to figure out what happened. And at the end of the day, you have very reliable witnesses. You have amazing stories, and we have to figure out what truly happened versus what some may have thought happened. And that's not insulting, by the way. That's just the reality of people recollecting a 2004 event.
Well, okay. So then does this go back where you're trying to, I'm speaking about you specifically, John, where you're trying to rationalize all of this and fit it into a terrestrial viewpoint? Is this going back to, the famous quote, if we encounter technology far beyond our own, we would equate it with magic? And that, we're not understanding, you're not, I'm not, 80,000 feet to sea level in under a second. That's magic. That doesn't fit our technology or our known physics. Is that because it quite possibly could be alien tech, and we need to keep that on the table?
Sure. And let me ask you, just because it's been a while since I've looked at exactly all the different witnesses, what they say. Was there a visual observation of the 80,000 to 100 feet, or was that instrumentation?
That was instrumentation.
So I didn't want to misspeak. So thank you for.
Yeah. Now, this is according to everybody that I've had on this show that I've talked to directly about this, Kevin Day and so forth, that it was multiple radar systems.
Right.
Okay. It wasn't just one. It was multiple radar systems that were picking up the same data.
Right. And so I just wanted to make sure that I didn't misspeak, but I think that that's where we have to figure out, okay, could this be a platform that is able to emulate that? Because when you look at the strategic value to start creating ghosts, right, that you're utilizing magic in the field. I think magic definitely plays a role in this,
sure.
but quite possibly in a different way, where you're creating ghosts for the enemy to chase, that you're emulating certain characteristics of craft that you could be or could not be engaging the enemy with. There's a huge strategic value with that. And I mean, I'm always fascinated with those types of strategic moves and research that the government has and military has done to fool the enemy, not necessarily have the best technology, but rather make them think you do. And that's where that greatest trick of the magician, look at my right hand so you don't know what my left is doing, right, that plays a role here, because now we question whether or not we actually have that technology, whether or not we're being visited by an alien race, or there's technology to make us think that there is that technology, right? And so you have a lot of ways to look at it, and it is a provable history with not only psychological warfare, but essentially creating illusions in the battlefield. And that's why stealth technology is implemented in the field. You have radar signatures that are sometimes non-existent, or they are made to create the illusion of some other type of craft. So you have a lot of spoofing going on. You have all sorts of things to consider. So that's not necessarily being a skeptic or a debunker, but rather being based in reality. This is what they are doing. This is what they are pursuing. So instead of taking 1,000 aircraft and invading, an enemy of some kind, make them think you have 1,000 aircraft. And that's the technology that we know is being developed, and whether or not it's implemented, who knows? But again, I'm more talking broadly speaking here, but those are the types of possibilities. Now, when you talk about witnesses to a UFO encounter, instrumentation only observations, which is great. I'm not dismissing it at all, but we have to then look at the root of what potentially could be the cause: alien, human tech, or literally figuratively ghosts.
Well, if history, it's simple to look at. During World War II, before the Normandy invasion, we had inflatable tanks lined up in the UK, balloon tanks.
Yeah,
lined up, thousands of them. So when enemy, the Luftwaffe or whoever is flying over and looking. They see 1,000 tanks, but they're balloons.
And I'm so glad you brought it up, because I tried to stay away from that. They believed, or Hitler believed, that it was coming from Pas-de-Calais, I believe in France, with all those balloon tanks. And the production company that I used to work with did a full show. I think they called it War Illusionists. And it was all about how you, in war, can create the illusion. And it worked. And that was a prime example. I'm glad you brought it up, because I just didn't want to, derail to a World War II story. But I'm glad you brought it up, because you're absolutely right. Where you had these tanks, and there's a really cool video. I think it was an army guy that was like literally pushing over a tank because it was a giant, just balloon that rested on the ground.
Sherman. Yeah, it was a balloon.
But
Sherman.
the Nazis thought it was they never thought it was coming from the beaches of Normandy. They thought it was coming from the north, and that was the illusion. And so that's a much more simplified way of looking at it. But the strategy is exactly the same. Make your enemy think that your tech is here, or it's this capable, it can go this fast, doesn't matter. That is a provable history going back to World War II and likely even before. But yeah, you nailed it. I'm glad you brought that up, because it's a fascinating piece of history.
There's another part to this, and I'm still leaning on the alien side of this, and believe me, I've gone both ways over the years. But I reported on this 5 years ago, predating December 2017, that the Department of Defense, and specifically DARPA, has been working on a spoofing technique with plasma and projections of stuff out there that would get picked up on the enemy radar, that wouldn't only be an object, but it would look like a plane, or it would look like this. And you could get that to do specific things. Now, you're not going to see it, right? It's not going to be a physical aircraft, but you can have it do incredible things, and you could throw this off a radar. And also, that would operate at the speed of light, right? So when the Tic Tac reports came out, now I started to think about this 80,000 feet to sea level in less than a second. And what a better way to do it than with, a flashlight, right? Or the same idea, and the technology itself is not that complicated, right? This isn't defying physics. It's just applying available technology to spoof radar systems.
Yeah, and I think that's the mindset that we have to be in to look at these types of cases. And you brought up the quote about if you see it, you don't understand it, you equate it to magic. In today's world, you equate it to aliens, that it's not necessarily magic, but rather this has to be an intelligent race from somewhere beyond. But the reality is that humans, us Americans here in the United States, that is what we are doing. And that is something we have pursued for decades, going back to the development of stealth and so on and so forth. There's a lot of rumors. I don't think that it's been declassified yet, as far as I know, but I know that they were experimenting with the projection of essentially like a stealth, but they would have mounted equipment on a plane with it being made out of a material that when you would project back, you could make it invisible. And so you would have an equipment on one side of the aircraft to get the picture, the sky, whatever was on the other side, then something on the other craft to project it. And essentially you would make that plane vanish because you're looking right through it and it would be flying. I mean, those are all types of technology that they've been either implementing or developing or just thinking about. It doesn't really matter. But
there's another version of that where you have a plane. I've got to take a break here in 20 seconds. I'm going to do this really quick. You have a plane, you have a camera pointed to the sky above the plane. Underneath the plane is a LED screen, right? So whatever is the camera, and then that is projected underneath, and that's all you're going to see is you're going to see the sky. You're not going to see the actual plane. Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, the one and only John Greenwald of the Black Vault. When we come back, we're going to jump into TTSA. It's Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. on the Game Changer and UNX networks. More with John after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, VX.
This is Billy Carson, founder and CEO of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv is the fastest growing and one of the most watched networks in the world. I would like to personally invite you to check out our expanding library of TV, film, lectures, and special presentations. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv has over 6,000 videos covering lost history, health, UFOs, spirituality, and our future. We are committed to our community, and with my personal invitation, you can, right now, get your free 30-day membership at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Your own library of information starts today at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv.
Because you never got that pony you always wanted. Damn it. Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer, Einstein, the ancient crystal skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com.
Hi, Race Hobbs with the X. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you have an interest in unexplained phenomena like ghosts, Bigfoot, and UFOs. And by now, you know that we have our own X blog, the UNX newsletter, and the UNX magazine quarterly. But most of you don't know that we have started our very own paranormal conference. And this year, for safety, this 2-day XCon will be virtual, so you can attend from the comfort of your home. XCon presenters include Whitley Strieber, Micah Hanks, Margie Kay and Preston Dennett, Lisa Martin and Wayne Lawrence, Lee Spiegel, Debbie Zagelmeyer, Dan Terry, Kate Grabowski, and Ray Hernandez. There will also be a live paranormal investigation by the Riverside, Iowa Paranormal Team. So come hang out with us in the safety of home as we set out to explain the unexplained Friday, May 13th and Saturday the 14th, 2022. And tickets are on sale now. Go to unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church. Fade to Black.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers, and you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological charts in 3. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. As you can see tonight, John Greenwald is with us. Normally, I've got John in the green room, and you're going to see me and a pop-up and no. I'll get the hang of this video director stuff. John, TTSA. Oh, man. Okay, I almost don't know where to start with this, but the latest SEC filings were just released. How much trouble is TTSA in right now?
If you're talking about financially, I'm going to say up front, I'm not versed in those types of financial reports to speculate on whether or not they're in trouble. What I will say, it's very jarring when you look at deficits and debt and stuff like that. And I don't think, although I haven't really matched them up since they've came about, I believe it's growing. So, I've always, since day one, despite some criticism about parts of the story, have wished Tom DeLonge all the best with his business. I've never wished him ill. I own my own business away from the Black Vault myself, and I really do encourage people, if they want to start a business, or in his case, a public benefit corporation, I wish them all the best. I really, truly do. I don't wish them any ill harm. But I am let down at the way that they came about. And going back to your question, although I don't pretend to know everything about those financials, when you look at some of the other aspects of TTSA, they've just kind of fallen to the wayside. And I know with COVID and the era we live in, adjustments have to be made. But it just seems like they are way off the mark of what they originally were. And specifically, I have watched that Army agreement, what they call the CRADA, more than all else. I mean, I am really kind of invested in following that and trying to figure out what exactly they're doing. So I don't know if you want to get into that, but when it comes to the financials, I don't want to pretend like I know what I'm talking about, because I really don't.
I don't either. And I know that, and this has to be the way that it is. When you're at that level of money and success and wealth, I'm specifically talking about Tom DeLonge, you now have people around you that handle your money and do your stuff, right? That's it. Tom's not doing that. And so when you look at these financials, these are put together for the SEC by his accountants and his bankers and his financial people. And so they move money and talk about money in ways that I just don't have a concept of. I don't. But how, when you see numbers like whatever, 30 million, 35 million in debt, 50 million in debt, 10 million in debt, whatever these, they're big numbers. And you have to ask yourself, how do you arrive at that kind of loss? And then, and my other side says, it's just a play on words. It's a play with money. That can't be the real situation. I don't pretend to understand it. I'm just looking at these crazy numbers.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, how did they get there? And again, they've got the SEC, they've got investors, they're selling stock, they're doing this, and they're playing money games, right? Yeah. And that's what's happening. And I just simply don't understand it.
Neither do I. And I have no idea how they would get out of that, or if they can. And although I don't pretend to know, not to repeat it, there was a comment in those financials that the auditor expressed concern on whether or not this corporation should keep going. So I think there's something to be said that even though we may not understand the ins and outs, the auditor of these financials is expressing concern, and you can see those in the SEC paperwork as well. So it's clear that it's not going well. And I think by their restructuring and kind of pretty much letting things fall to the wayside, I think they are trying to adjust. And again, as a business, I hope they succeed and move forward in that way. But I think that, again, going back to that Army agreement, I'm really kind of scratching my head on that and how they have talked about it over the last couple of years, how they essentially sold it to the public, so to speak. And look where we are now. And although that they fell back on the COVID excuse that the laboratories were shut down, and although I did find out that was partially true, can you believe that I actually got more information from the Army, not even utilizing FOIA, although I did and got information, but was able to get more information from the U.S. Army than I was from the Public Benefit Corporation, TTSA. And that to me is very telling. So financials aside, I'm really concerned. What are they doing? You know, I mean, they're preaching about transparency, but they don't want to tell us anything. The Army, I got them to admit that they've tested this material that TTSA says that they've acquired, and I know they have. I know a couple personally, but that they've acquired this material. They won't say what the results or anything were. And although I didn't get the results from the Army, last year I was able to get them to admit that they did testing. And at that point, TTSA wouldn't even talk about it. So there's a lot of secrecy involved with a corporation that preaches transparency.
So let's stay with CRADA. Before we get there, Hal Puthoff, there's some comments in there that did he have a shift in position? Was he on the board and not on the board now? Is he he was a founder and on the board. And although I thought it was new, apparently it was quietly done. I say quietly because there wasn't really a lot of talk about it last year. So I had noted that I thought that was new, and even put in there, you know, people correct me if I'm wrong. And some of the investors were aware and they corrected me and rightfully so. But I kind of looked into that and thought, okay, like where was this talked about? Was there maybe not a press release, but generally you'll see stuff like that. Very little talk and chatter on social media. So the founder, Dr. Hal Puthoff, who was on the board last year, stepped down from the board and now just resides on the advisory board. And I mean, who really knows what the advisory board really does? I mean, it's more just like a list of people. So, you know, how much involvement he has in the day-to-day, who knows? But it was definitely a shift last year that was done likely very quietly. Now, and I bring that up in advance of CRADA because I would have thought that Hal would have had a direct interest in not only the materials, because he's been working with them, but the results from the military testing. And he apparently quit or stepped down almost a year ago. Now, has the Army completed the testing on these materials? Likely not completed. They didn't tell me that, but they started it and completed certain tests. So I was able to get that from the Army last year in conjunction with a FOIA release of documents that I got and the denial of documents. So there's a lot of secrecy involved when it comes to the FOIA trying to get this. And honestly, I'll support the secrecy as much as I don't want to. It protects corporate interests. So it's ultimately going to be, from what I can see here, TTSA's decision on how much they will ultimately release to the public. And I say that because FOIA exemption B4 allows the government to essentially redact and keep corporate secrets, proprietary information. So when they work with private corporations or public corporations, they want certain details to protect for that corporation, and rightfully so. As much as I want to know everything that's going on, that B4 exemption is there for a reason. So that's what's going on when it comes to FOIA and trying to figure out what these test results are. Because essentially it's TTSA's material, and the results, therefore, would be TTSA property. The agreement says that they will share those results with the Army, but FOIA exemption B4 will keep it from you and I. It will ultimately be up to TTSA to say, okay, public, this is what we found out. And time will tell on whether or not they are going to do that. When I did reach out to TTSA last year, when I wrote that article and got those documents and got the Army feedback on it,
asked them, is there anything that you can add? And they would not. Rather, they sent me to a stack of SEC filings and meeting minutes and stuff like that with no guide whatsoever, like, hey, look here or look there. They just said everything you need to know is in that. And anybody who looks at SEC papers and meeting minutes and stuff like that, it's just a mountain of information. So I looked, I didn't see anything. I did hear in their recent meeting, which I believe was last week, they said that the CRADA continued and that they were, kind of reopened, so to speak, and meaning the Army, the facilities, and that the CRADA is ongoing. So at least they said that much in their meeting to their investors. But at this point, it could be years, if not ever, that we hear something, and that's a shame. I don't want to speak for anybody who either lent or sold their material over to TTSA. I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say they probably didn't expect that, meaning the secrecy, the shielding of the results, the lack of communication to the public. So we're not dealing with a corporation, and I want to stress this part because it may sound like I'm trashing them. I'm trashing the idea that they are a public benefit corporation, not one that is supposed to be going through all of this for solely for profit reasons. So if they were a corporation that was trying to create some kind of advanced aerospace tech, sure, I can actually support that corporate level of secrecy for proprietary information. That's fine. But that's not what this was. This was a public benefit corporation that felt that they should acquire all these pieces of metamaterial. Last I heard, it was like 14 or something like that were allegedly from UAP, signed deals to either get it on loan or, in Linda Moulton Howe's case, purchased it. And the results were what I thought were going to be shared. And yet now we're focusing on entertainment, TV shows, documentaries, movies, and it seems like the CRADA has very much fallen to the wayside. So to a corporation that can potentially, the way it was sold to us, change the world, why aren't they being a little bit more forthcoming with what they're seeing, what they're achieving, even if it's nothing? Just say, look, this is where we're at. But sadly, I haven't seen that. And last year I gave them the opportunity to do that. And I even said the Army is more transparent right now than you guys. And nobody cares. So they no comment.
Yeah, and so when we look at the structure of TTSA, which they had these different divisions, right? 3. Now it seems to be just entertainment, which is the focus. So with, Justice is gone, Hal Puthoff has stepped down, Semi Van is still there, but Chris Mellon, I did look at the financials. The less, who is left are doctors, right? And that's basically it. No engineering, or I would say aerospace engineers are anywhere near TTSA. So where does that leave us? If the CRADA comes back and there's something significant about these metamaterials, how do you go back and restart this technology division and build an anti-grav passenger aircraft, right? What's next? Or is it just going to be books and music?
In my opinion, it's going to be books and music. I think that they've had the material long enough at this point to realize if it was something truly groundbreaking, humanity-altering, earth-shattering news, that their focus would be on that. And it's really unfortunate because I have at least one personal connection to one of the individuals who has a piece of what they acquired. So that's why I get personally invested. This ties back in, and you brought it up on your show. That's why I'm bringing it up. You brought it up with Luis Elizondo. So I've known Larry Sikander for years. I knew Bob White personally for years before he passed. I had gotten him on a couple History Channel shows I had produced. We profiled him on UFO Hunters, the documentary that I did. And then later we brought him back on UFO Hunters itself, the series that more people know about when I had produced for season 3. The reason I say that is we sat down with Bob for hours filming with Larry, Dr. Robert Gibbons. We enlisted the help of scientists and did tests that we could afford for History Channel. These are individuals that are incredibly passionate about what they have experienced, or in Larry's case, seen his good friend Bob, who has passed away, experience, and has tried to carry that torch to get answers. I don't speak for Larry, so I don't know if this is how he feels. But how I feel is that you can't take that from people and shield it when their work, literally, it became Bob's work. I know he became controversial with some decisions he did. But that being said, I mean, his story was pretty interesting. Passed multiple lie detector tests. He never wavered from the details that he had. I mean, we fully recreated it with actors and props and everything, his entire experience. And when you look at the individual himself and what he experienced, to see that kind of stuff taken away from them and just swallowed up for literally years at this point, it's frustrating. And at that point, I always try to not make it personal, but you can't help but make it personal just simply because you look at the work that these individuals have done much longer than I have ever seen their work, or you or TTSA or Tom or anybody. They have been doing this for a long, long time to try and get answers. So it's very frustrating to see that it's all swallowed up and then put to the way. Let's make a movie. Let's make a cartoon. Let's make the entertainment division the focus of this. Well, then you know what? Give it all back. Don't keep it. I am not under the impression they did. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like, let it go then. You know, don't string these people along who believed in a public benefit corporation to loan their material or whatever their contract says, but to get involved with that. Don't do it to them. I mean, it really is a very sad thing to do. It's very frustrating for me because my connection to that case alone goes back over 20 years at this point.
Can a CRADA agreement be broken?
You know, I'm not an attorney, so I wouldn't pretend to give you a real answer on that. I mean, generally, there's really no, I think, obligation at this point. The agreement was there for them to utilize the Army facilities and the Army capabilities to get some answers, and it was going to be stretched over quite a few different years with different milestones. COVID obviously sent everything awry. So I think especially in this day and age, that could be broken without any repercussion. But on top of that, I think even if COVID wasn't an issue and we didn't live in the COVID era, the way I saw the CRADA was that, yeah, maybe if TTSA said, hey, you know what, XYZ changed and they backed out, there was no like contractual obligation that TTSA had to do something. Again, I'm just speaking as a normal person, not an attorney, but I just didn't see anything in there that was obligatory.
Well, and my point being, you know, break the agreement to say, you know what, it's not working for us, and get the materials back. And so you could go to independent laboratories and go into self-funding and not depend on the military.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not fully convinced that all the material was just handed over to the Army. Unless somebody has said that somewhere, I'm not familiar with that. I mean, really how I took it was that material in the custody of TTSA would be able to go and utilize, share the results, you know, and again, there's different types of tests they were going to do. But that was always how I read and understood that agreement. It wasn't that they sent everything over to the Army. But still, I think that there's a concern that the military itself as an entity, I would fully support is part of this cover-up. So to enter a deal to say, hey, we potentially have pieces of UAP, we want to make an agreement with you to utilize your facilities under this CRADA and share the results with you. You are getting evidence and walking it right back into the home of the one responsible for the secrecy, which I always felt was silly. So I don't think that they ever really turned it over, but rather it was the idea that they were still walking in the door with it and that they were going to be able to utilize that facility. But there's nothing to say that let's say they got something that was potentially a classified in nature piece of whatever, that the Army would clamp down on it. I mean, I truly believe that would happen. I don't believe that the CRADA would just relinquish TTSA of any responsibility of keeping that secret, but rather they would clamp down on them and say, no, you cannot share this because it is classified. And then potentially you're getting into a confiscation if that's what it turned out to be, something of a classified nature, whether that be a military platform, piece of tech, or something else that they deem to be classified. So I think that there's a lot of gray area there where some people may say, no, the CRADA wouldn't allow that. If it came to a classified something rather, I believe the military would do anything and everything it had to do to keep that secrecy, and they would likely win in that situation, and just an opinion, but I think that they would.
Now, does this allow the CRADA in sharing the technology where you have TTSA as a public benefit corporation that's going to improve humanity, right, and use this alien tech, for us, for you and I? But if the military finds a use for it to make weapons or to improve a weapons system, is that part of this agreement with CRADA that they could take this technology and use it for the military industrial complex? Yeah,
from what I understand, that was the whole point of it. So if the Army wasn't able to do that, the CRADA made no sense. It was just essentially giving full access to their facility, but rather this was a effort to share the results, and in exchange for TTSA being able to utilize the expertise of the U.S. Army in those facilities and the facility itself, the results would be shared with the Army to exploit in whichever way they would want. And they specifically, if memory serves, were talking about ground units that they were looking at this to potentially use in their ground units and technology in that respect, which I always found a little bit interesting, that it wasn't aircraft or sharing with the Air Force or whatever. But regardless, that was more or less the scope of it, but they would absolutely share to exploit.
The only part about there's lots of parts, but the one thing that just felt a little stinky to me, a little dirty, is that you have TTSA, with this image with the UFO community and collecting this stuff, and then I have a piece of something, right, from an alien craft, and I send it into TTSA, and the next thing I know, I think that TTSA is going to check it out, and now it's in the hands of the Department of Defense, and they're looking at this to build, anti-tank armor, right? It's like, wait a minute. Yeah. It's not what I signed up to do. And that's the part that feels a little, it's a little dirty. It's a little funky to me.
It absolutely is, and has been since the announcement of the CRADA. I've never understood the logic beyond, sure, getting access to expertise and technology to conduct these tests. And yes, that is a benefit. But when you look at all else, will this backfire? Will there be results that will turn this into a classified topic, meaning specifically the metamaterials? Will the Army find some reason to do that? Could they do that? Again, a lot of speculation said no, they wouldn't be able to do that. I would argue, yes, they probably could, simply because if they wanted to hide something that they didn't want the public to know, and whether that be advanced classified tech or something else. So that part has never made sense to me, especially because you're now getting in bed with the same entity that you're blaming for the secrecy in the first place. So you're coming out with at the time, I know he's moved on, but with a former DOD counterintelligence agent, and you're saying that the military is not taking this seriously. They're squashing the topic. There's immense secrecy. There's this, that, and the other thing. So you've got that message in your first breath. Then your second breath is, hey, give me all the UAP best material out there. We'll buy it, we'll borrow it, we'll exploit it, and we'll give it back to the Army for them to test, and trust us because it's for the public benefit. It didn't make sense to me at all. And I understand, again, that they were getting a lot in return to have those facilities and expertise. I just think if it was going to turn into anything, it would backfire very quickly. And so here we are, however many years later since they announced that CRADA, I understand COVID has created monkey wrenches in every wheel that exists, but regardless, at this point, there's no communication about it. And even though they said last week that the CRADA continues, why is it last year that the Army told me what they did? So there's obviously test results of some kind. What did we find out? It's a melted Budweiser can. All right, let's hear it. Like what was the result of that? Inconclusive? Cool. Let's hear it. Failure? All right, let's find out why. But instead, the Army can't go that far. They were only able to confirm the test took place, and TTSA did not want to talk to me other than saying, hey, go look at the meeting minutes, and the SEC filings, which didn't tell us anything.
Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight from the Black Vault, John Greenwald. Great conversation. When we come back, I'm going to talk about some employment changes over at the DOD. That's right. We'll talk about all of that and much more when we come back after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Personel Tiburón y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and this year, June 18th, 2022, the Disclosure Fest Foundation presents the Mass Meditation Initiative. It's Saturday, June 18th from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., one day only at the Los Angeles State Historic Park in downtown Los Angeles, California, right next to Chinatown. I'm hosting the event again this year with music performances by Trevor Hall, The Desert Dwellers, Poranki, and many, many more on 4 separate stages. There's 16 stages in total, over 30 acres in downtown Los Angeles, with vendors and tents and presentations and workshops with Billy Carson, Adam Apollo, Lori Spagna, Laura Eisenhower, Brad Olson, David Palmer, and many, many more. It's all simple to do. Just go to disclosurefest.org for all of your tickets, information, and a full schedule of the day's events. Again, disclosurefest.org. Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. Fadernauts, when you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi.
I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Let me tell you something. Tonight, our guest is John Greenwald. I really like looking at the guitars in the background. Yeah, those are pretty cool. John Greenwald is here. We have so many headlines, and John, I should probably be a little bit honest with everybody. Normally, you and I are, what's the word that I want to use? Communicating, talking, gossiping like a little sewing circle with all of this stuff. And we didn't get a chance to do that over the last couple of weeks like we normally do. And especially with this kind of interesting stuff that is floating around right now. But we haven't. And so we're going to take the opportunity to do this now, and I want to talk about Gary Reid. Mm-hmm. If you go, okay, so we had the article that came out with the debrief that stated that Gary Reid was no longer employed. He's been relieved of his duties at the United States government. Great read, great article. And then if you go to www.intelligence.senate.gov right here, and you click, it says right there, Director for Defense Intelligence, Intelligence and Security Officer under the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. Gary Reid is currently serving as Director for Defense Intelligence, Intelligence and Security at DDI and INS, reporting directly to the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. What's going on?
Yeah, it was definitely, and I'm pulling up here just so I can quote it. It was definitely a story in UFO tradition that was a bit muddy. And the reason why I say a UFO story is that when it was originally reported that he was fired, I know that there was, I believe, some talk that it wasn't said that he was fired, that it was relieved of duties, and it was a very careful. I watched an interview with the journalist who wrote the article, Tim McMillan. Within 24 hours of publishing, he said he was fired like 4 or 5 times. So it was definitely, the message was that he was fired. But as you noted, there was some confusion. And I was not alone hearing some rumblings that he was still punching the time clock, so to speak, that he was still physically inside the Pentagon after it was reported he was fired or let go, relieved of duties, but he was still there. So anybody who follows me on social media, I was getting asked a lot to say like, hey, what is this all about? Because there was the connection to the UFO stuff and that he was the one that was responsible for the Luis Elizondo comments that have created so much controversy in the last couple of years and very much a warring faction between the different sides of ufology. Did Elizondo, did he not? Did he this, did he that? And so it was essentially alluded to that it was Gary Reid who was the evil root to those statements. But the reason why I stayed out of it was because I knew he was still going to the Pentagon as early as that Monday of the week after that report was published. The news article was published. So I stayed out of it. I didn't even comment on it because I didn't even want to go there. Then Jazz Shaw, who also actually writes for the Debrief, but also through hotair.com, he had received word on background from somebody at the DOD that he was still there. And he published that publicly. And that then, erupted the controversy of what was going on. Well, fast forward to, and I pulled it up here so I can read it to you, April 23rd, the DOD finally, on behalf of Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby, made comment on what was going on. And I'll read it to you real quick. It's only a couple lines. We can confirm that Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security Ron Moultrie has directed the reassignment of Mr. Gary Reid to the Defense Intelligence Agency. An interim director for Defense Intelligence, Counterintelligence, Law Enforcement, and Security will be appointed in the near future. So essentially, it seemed like, at least as of April 23rd, when I got this, and again, this was sent to me on behalf of Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby. I was not the only one to get this. Quite a few people got it. But essentially, he was being reassigned. I'm not going to defend the guy. He seems, I don't want to say anything bad. He seems like not a good guy based on the allegations against him. But when it was published that the Inspector General for the DOD looked into some claims about inappropriate behavior, I don't know how much detail you want to go into, but just inappropriate behavior and inappropriate relationships, most of which they could not confirm. They were able to confirm the I don't want to say illusion, but essentially they were Gary Reid, along with another employee at the DOD, were projecting a subordinate were projecting the idea that they were having a inappropriate relationship, but they could never confirm that they actually were having the inappropriate relationship. And the second thing that they were able to deduce from the whole thing was that he was using his personal email for DOD business. That is the big no-no out of all of this. But that was 2020. When that was published. So that to me was kind of the writing on the wall. Like, wait a minute, is this the justification for him to be let go? Didn't make sense that 2 years were passed. So obviously he wasn't. I know that it was then posted that he was relieved of all duties of the DOD. But as we can see, he was assigned to the DIA, which is, for those who don't know, an intelligence arm of the Department of Defense, the DOD. So again, that is not a defense of the guy. But rather, there's a lot more to this story that we don't know. Now, that may all sound kind of like snoozy talk, but for me, the connection was this UFO claim that he was the root of Luis Elizondo. And then Politico ended up writing a story about this and essentially said through Luis Elizondo, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it essentially was Luis Elizondo's Inspector General complaint that kind of set this into overdrive and led to the ousting of Gary Reid. But I haven't seen any supporting evidence of that, and I think that was first in the Daily Mail. So
well, let me get some background, not only from you but for the audience on this.
Sure.
Was Gary Reid, and this is what has been suggested, right? Was it Gary Reid that was feeding the lines for Susan Gao at the DOD when she was making these public statements about Elizondo? Was that coming from Reid?
So I can't confirm that because nothing was ever attributed to Gary Reid.
But this is what has been suggested.
That's what's been suggested, yeah. And if there's truth to that, I'd love to see it. If there's a backtrack of the Pentagon stance because it all led back to Gary Reid, okay, I'll be the first to publish it. I have no problem with that. Look, I'm out for the truth, not out to get anybody in particular. Right. But from the looks of it, that is not the case. And there have been inquiries on whether or not stances were going to change, and they're not, at least not as we speak here in May. So what's going to happen tomorrow? Look, I won't pretend to be a fortune teller, but I deal with the now and what evidence supports the claims of the now, and I just don't see it. And I don't want to say that the UFO allegation didn't play a role in this, meaning that he had this vendetta against Mr. Luis Elizondo, and that's why this whole thing went sour for Gary Reid, because it finally came to light. And the reason why I say this, and I'll make this quick point, is that we know that the release of the gimbal, the FLIR, and the Go Fast videos, those are the 3 UFO videos that we've seen since December of 2017 and March of 2018 when it comes to the Go Fast. We've seen those a million times over since they surfaced. There was an investigation into the release of those 3 videos because it was not authorized. That wasn't just a press statement, although that did come and that was really controversial. But the Air Force Office of Special Investigations investigated that specific leak. And the documents have been released through the Freedom of Information Act. And although some of the names are redacted, you can see they took the leak seriously. They tried to figure out what happened. The mistake was made when Luis Elizondo denies that he did it. He did that on video with me in a recorded interview. So somehow those videos came out. He said that he did not do it. Christopher Mellon has admitted he was the one that leaked him to the New York Times. But the investigation showed that they looked into this, and although the videos were considered unclassified, it was determined that if they were told, meaning what they call the release authority, if they were told they were going to be published by the media, they likely would have said no. And so you look at this investigation and you can kind of fill in the blank of who Luis Elizondo's, where his name is, because it actually references a redacted name, but then later it says, and he told the media that he was the head of essentially ATIP. I'm paraphrasing, but you can easily deduce that he's there. Why am I bringing this up? Well, because if there was a vendetta from Gary Reid, who is said to have been the one responsible for initiating this investigation and getting AFOSI to do it, that was the opportunity to cut the head off the snake. Mm-hmm. That if the Air Force Office of Special Investigations is going to Luis Elizondo saying, hey, we got an unauthorized leak here of material, and all of this was charades based on the evil doings of Gary Reid, why wasn't that brought up when it was investigated? And I don't see any plausible reason why not. And fast forward now to 2022, and there's this story about Gary Reid, and all of a sudden it's because of UFO stuff. And that's what I don't understand, because if he really was the head of the snake, then this was the prime opportunity to put it on the record to military investigators that there was a vendetta from somebody who shouldn't be within the DOD, who was targeting another DOD counterintelligence agent. Yet none of that was there. And I question that. I would love the opportunity to ask Mr. Elizondo. I have reached out before I get hate mail. Like, why don't you just ask him? I have, meaning I've reached out to him numerous times to essentially do a follow-up interview to what I did early last year. Sadly, I know he's busy and that hasn't come to pass. I don't know if it will. But I respect it, meaning if he decides not to ever talk to me again, that's okay. But those are on a list of that is on a list of a much longer list of questions that I think we need to ask. If we're going to accuse people of thwarting, the release of UFO information and squashing the UFO topic, and he's the sole head of the snake that has created the issues for Luis Elizondo, then let's get it all out there. Let's figure out where the evidence is, because there's a paper trail. You can't achieve something like that without there being a paper trail.
Yeah, let me jump in, though. Mm-hmm. It feels like that is where this is headed. And it seems to me, I have no inside information, mm-hmm. but it seems to me that Lou and Danny Sheehan met with the IG. They had this complaint put together. There was the missing, deleted emails, and the other statements from Susan and things pointed right directly back at Lou. And then we have this result about Gary Reid. And was this what the IG found in their investigation? And that is why he got moved out. I don't think he got moved out because he was setting dinner plates in his office for lunch with his subordinate. I don't think that is It might be grounds for this, but it seems like there is something much bigger here, and it's probably to me, from where I'm sitting, what has been suggested by Lou, that Gary was the issue.
So my and that could very well be the case. I don't say that that's not possible, but to accept that that's the reason for his reassignment, if that would be the repercussion of it, in my opinion, the DOD Office of the Inspector General would not take action on an allegation, but rather they would on a conclusion. And so my questions to the two journalists that wrote for the Daily Mail and their article, they made a lot of claims there, one of which was negated by Luis Elizondo himself. And I was actually defending Luis Elizondo's stance that they were publishing that he was the leaker. And Mr. Elizondo told me specifically he was not, and would have advised TTSA not to release those videos. I saw a comment in the chat room that Luis Elizondo is making the right choice not talking to me. But what I think some people don't realize is I'm trying to also defend him here. And I asked the journalists, why are you publishing that when here's video of your source? Here's video of Luis Elizondo's specifically saying he didn't do it. But on top of that, is there evidence that that Inspector General complaint that Luis Elizondo filed sparked an investigation and established a conclusion? And neither one of them would answer that. So you can't allege that the DOD took action on an allegation. I'd love to hear that. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but how scary is that? That you can just go in and go, they did something.
Yeah,
and so they go, okay, fine, let's move them out.
True. But we don't know the results of the investigation.
Well, that's exactly my point. And do we know there are results?
But
that's what I'm trying to say.
Would the IG make that public?
So
do we have a right to know on that when it's some type of internal administration level discipline and movement?
So you're absolutely right. And it's a great question. So I've spoken to the DOD IG numerous times in the last year and a half, trying to get an answer to that very question. Although they will admit to the UAP evaluation, they don't call it an investigation, but the evaluation, they will admit to that. I have the case number. We all do. And I'm going after records on that. They will not comment on not only the complaint of Luis Elizondo, but if they even initiated a investigation at all. I believe Danny Sheehan has said that there is, but the DOD won't comment. And whether or not it ever finishes, they will not comment on if they will acknowledge that. So I go back to the same question. The journalists are establishing action taken on the complaint, which is great. I'm not going to argue that. But where's the proof that any investigation took place and it was finished? And if it's anonymously sourced, which is fine, I hate that, by the way. But regardless, if that is what it is, then let's hear it. But the journalists wouldn't go there either. And where I kind of get frustrated is you actually have a very interesting and fascinating story that someone like Gary Reid is again, I'm trying to choose my words carefully, is not really supposed to be there with the type of person he is. You can see from the allegations, he probably isn't the best of all human beings. And there's an interesting story there. But then all of a sudden UFOs gets thrown in the mix and we don't really have the supporting evidence there. We have the supporting evidence that he's kind of a sleazebag, and that is in the evidence produced by the DOD IG report published in 2020. Boom, that's evidence. Has a conclusion, good to go. But then all of a sudden it's like, oh, and by the way, he's fully responsible for UFO secrecy, derailing ATIP, slandering Luis Elizondo, and all this stuff. Where is that? And that was my question, again, to those two journalists who really made the most boldest of claims for the Daily Mail, saying, hey, look, you guys aren't sourcing this to anything. And even if they don't show me the document, fine. But is it an anonymous source? Is it a government official that told you that didn't want to be named, but they did an investigation, found a conclusion, and took action? And that's what I think a lot of people are missing. And I think general public, especially the portion that's interested in UFOs, will take the inkling that something happened and blow it up into a reality. And then now it's just solid gold that Gary Reid is absolutely the root of Susan Goff's statements, which, by the way, for people who hate Susan Goff, she was not the one that issued the original statement about Luis Elizondo. So I think a lot of people are missing the actual history here. Did she play a role behind the scenes? I mean, I can't definitively tell you that, but it was attributed to somebody else. Christopher Sherwood was the one, I believe, who originally sent that out. It was not Susan Goff. So I think a lot of people are missing the facts when it comes to this, and they place blame. And that's what happened to one of the Pentagon spokespeople. If everybody's scratching their heads on who's Susan, well, she's the Pentagon spokesperson that's become the bad guy in this story. And people love to hate her when it comes to this, but they don't realize it actually wasn't her that issued the original statement. So we're missing a lot of pieces to the puzzle. And the guy is likely a very bad guy and shouldn't be in the DOD. But that doesn't mean we could just like make up stuff and just go, oh yeah, well, he did this too, when we don't have the supporting evidence yet. And that's really what I was looking for when I was questioning the journalists, and then people get upset on Twitter because how dare you challenge the Daily Mail or whatever they were saying.
Well, it's also, yeah, and with Susan Goff, you say tomato.
Goff, like cough, only with a G.
Okay, Goff, is that there is a severe case of like cognitive dissonance going on with her, in that if she says something that is cool, you're all right. But as soon as it goes outside of your belief system, and you can't have it both ways. It's either one way or the other.
Yeah.
With her, and it's very, very interesting. You know that if it's anti your belief system, she's the Antichrist. But if she tells you that the UAPs are real, right? You know what I mean? And it's like,
absolutely, yeah. And that's what I don't want to say the whole UFO community is like that, but some well, I mean, I wouldn't say the majority. I would say, though, there are a lot of loud voices that are like that, and they will crucify that Pentagon spokesperson for saying something that goes against the beliefs of today. But when that same spokesperson says something that they like, it's got to be true, because obviously the Pentagon told us. And that to me is the hypocrisy that's behind a lot of this, and that goes to the lack of proper questioning of what we are being told. Because the people that do that, and again, I'm not saying it's everyone, but the people that do that, they have their mind made up already. So why do they care if there's a government effort to try and unravel and answer what the UAP issue is? Why do they care? Because their mind is made up. If the government says that it's drone technology or explainable tech or whatever, they're lying. If they say we have no idea what it is and we're looking into it, they're telling the truth. They have no idea. See, it's aliens. You know, and so you pick and choose, and that's what gets really frustrating about this. It comes down to not what you believe, but what you can prove.
I know.
That's
I'm the
all
same
it is.
way, though, and I try to stay objective. But I pick and choose. Hey, Rachel,
it's easy to do.
Absolutely. Rachel, this just came in from Rachel. Before we get to the break, maybe you can answer this question for John. Have you ever submitted a FOIA request for documents pertaining to the Defense Science Board?
Yes. I had to look up my database. It's here. Yes. And it looks like going back to 2014, I was denied a document called the Defense Science Board Task Force on Intelligence Needs for Homeland Defense. I tried again in February of 2021. That case is still open. I couldn't do that one off the top of my head. I'm sorry, Rachel, but luckily I had my database open here of all my FOIAs. And yes, that is still an open case, and hopefully I'll get something that talks about that.
Man, you type like an Uzi with a silencer.
As I get older, it's a little slower. I used to do about 105, I think 105 words a minute. And I can't do that anymore.
I love it. I learned on an IBM Selectric. It's the one thing from high school, John, I swear to God, it's the only thing I retained at the age of 58 is learning how to type. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back. More with John after this short break. This is Fade to Black.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNXDB, the X.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? UNX Media publishes nonfiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNXDB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from Rivermoon. Just click on the Rivermoon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact.
This is Billy Carson, founder and CEO of Forbidden Knowledge, and we're heading to Egypt this October. Come join Jimmy Church, myself, and the Forbidden Knowledge team as we spend a week exploring Giza, the Great Sphinx, the Great Pyramid, Saqqara, Dashur, Aswan, Edfu, Dendara, Karnak, and we'll celebrate Jimmy's birthday in Luxor. The Forbidden Tour of Egypt is this October 5th through the 12th and includes a 4-day Nile cruise, expert Egyptologists, and a chance to explore Egypt with Jimmy and I as your host through your journey of a lifetime. Space is limited, so make your reservations now. Please visit forbiddenknowledge.com for information and complete itinerary. That's forbiddenknowledge.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and this year, June 18th, 2022, the Disclosure Fest Foundation presents the Mass Meditation Initiative. It's Saturday, June 18th from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., one day only at the Los Angeles State Historic Park in downtown Los Angeles, California, right next to Chinatown. I'm hosting the event again this year with music performances by Trevor Hall, The Desert Dwellers, Oran Ghee, and many, many more on 4 separate stages. There's 16 stages in total, over 30 acres in downtown Los Angeles, with vendors and tents and presentations and workshops with Billy Carson, Adam Apollo, Lori Spagna, Laura Eisenhower, Brad Olson, David Palmer, and many, many more. It's all simple to do. Just go to disclosurefest.org for all of your tickets, information, and a full schedule of the day's events. Again, disclosurefest.org.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, John Greenwald of the Black Vault. Tomorrow night, Jason Quitt right here. And then Wednesday night, Richard Dolan, The Interview. Great week coming up here on Fade to Black, starting off tonight with John Greenwald. And I wanted to give a shout out. I don't do this often, but after the show on Thursday, it was Fader night, I found Tommy's. And there's a Tommy's here, and long story short, so I go to Tommy's and I pull up and order some food, and I pull up, and this very nice person, her name was Athena, leans out the window. John, This is going to sound made up, right? But this is what happens. She leans out. She goes, excuse me. You look like Jimmy Church. This is at the Tommy's drive-through, man. I'm there for chili burgers, right? Chili fries, root beer float. And I said, I am. She goes, what are you doing here? I said, I live in Palmdale. What? And so anyway, I'm there at the Tommy's drive-through taking selfies. It was like the coolest thing. And I promised Athena that I would give a shout out to her mom and her mom's name is Angel. And it was the crazy. I can't wait to get home tonight and tell mom that this. And it was like that. I drove home. I got my burgers with the biggest smile on my face. It was just the most awesome thing. So thank you, Tommy's. Thank you, Athena. And Angel, you've got a great daughter. Okay, so there's the shout out. I have never done a shout out on this show, John. I never have.
It sounds like Tommy's should be your next sponsor.
I know, right?
Just saying.
Look.
Oh, you even have the shirt.
I have the Tommy's shirt on.
Already representing.
And yeah, it was
Don't
very
get the chili in your mixer board.
No, let me tell you something. That root beer float and that double cheeseburger was so good. After that, it was just an amazing. It was just fun, It put a smile on your face. Okay, now let's go to what is next. And Brian Bender wrote an article. It went out and was released on a few different media outlets today about, I think it was today, right? Or was it yesterday? It was today.
It was today.
It was today.
As far as I know.
About, first, did you get a chance to read the article? Let's just start there.
I did.
Okay. Suggesting that there is a big frustration building up on Capitol Hill with trying to get information out of the different agencies, CIA, I guess, FBI, NSA, whoever, and the Department of Defense and different branches of the military, getting information out for the legislation that was just passed. Have you heard of this same frustration going on between members of the Senate and the Senate Intelligence Committee and whoever else in Congress, the House of Representatives that is looking into this matter, not getting what they want?
Other than what's being reported right now, not really, meaning I don't have any extra information. What I can say is that I know it's very slow, where the AOI MSG, that new group that's essentially replacing the UAP task force, the implementation of that has been very slow. I oddly got a FOIA request response in the last couple of days. I didn't even post it yet, but I did a search of Kathleen Hicks's email box for essentially all appearances of the name Airborne Object, which is part of the AOI MSG acronym.
Okay,
but also
let me jump in. For the audience, who is Kathleen Hicks?
So she's the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense. She's the one that wrote the press release announcing the AOI MSG and the fact that it was replacing the UAP task force and so on. So I did this search on her mailbox for these keywords that would essentially, for those who aren't aware with the FOIA and what you can do, you can request reports and stuff like that. And that's what a lot of people do. I love the communications, the internal banter, the talk between people like Hicks and whomever else on the creation of this. And to be honest with you, I get more from that type of material than I do reports and stuff like that. So I filed this request, and they said that not a single occurrence of the acronym AOI MSG or I think it's AOI exec or whatever it is, which also ties into that, and also Airborne Object. Not a single email was received either sent to her or sent out from her, which to me is unlikely. So there's a lot of, the reason why I bring that up is that there's not only this slowness to them creating this office, but it seems like there's very much a pushback, not only from the Office of Public Affairs when you go for quotes, but also the FOIA itself, that they are telling you things that likely just aren't true. I mean, what are the likelihoods? She wrote the release. It was credited to her. What's the likelihood of them not talking about the thing that they announced a single time? It doesn't make sense. So there's a lot of pushback. There's a lot of secrecy with this. And that's pretty frustrating because I think a lot of people have very high hopes that we're in a new era of transparency, but all evidence points to that we're not. So going back to your question, when I hear not only the rumors, but obviously published in Politico now that they're very frustrated, meaning Congress is very frustrated, that's probably true. They don't have time to do what people like me do and file FOIAs and try and sift through evidence. They want the give it to me now. Like what's the bottom line? And there is no bottom line. So it's not surprising at all because all evidence points to secrecy, but also very much dragging their feet on getting this off the ground.
Now, didn't Hicks? Now we're going with my foggy memory bank, but didn't Hicks last year on June 25th also release a directorate memo that all action with UAP reports needed to be done within 2 weeks? Right?
So,
didn't she?
She was the one that wrote that memo that essentially said that, and that tied into more of the UAP task force days.
Right.
But that coincided with the public release of the UAP report.
Right. It was on the same day.
The same day. Yeah. And arguably that was more interesting than the public report itself.
No doubt.
Right, yeah. So she was the one that wrote that. And then fast forward, she's the one that announced the AOI MSG, whatever date that was. So I used that press release in my appeal. So I am appealing it. I'm fighting it. But the secrecy is definitely palpable here when it comes to UAP because they just don't want to talk about it. One thing we haven't talked about, I'm not trying to shift gears, but the classified version of that public UAP report, I was able to get that partially declassified. Mm-hmm. and put out into the public sphere. That was a pretty big get. I had fought for that for a long time. I've never followed up, I think, on any particular case. This was not a FOIA case, but rather what they call a mandatory declassification review. But my follow-ups were well into the double digits over the course of about a year or so. So it was a good get. But the secrecy is there. And I stress that point and beat the dead horse because so many are looking forward to this new era of transparency, and quite the opposite. All signs point to the secrecy is deepening at this point. And I know I'm not popular for saying that, but it is what it is.
Right.
And one of the other documents that I got was called a security classification guide that specifically instructs how to classify UAP information. The guide itself is nearly entirely classified. And so the secrecy here is from top to bottom, clamping down on the UAP issue. They just don't want to talk about it.
Now, we're sitting on May 2nd, and we have 2 reports due in 2022, and then public, and 1 classified that'll be at the end of December, if we stay on this timetable. We're on May 2nd. What's next month? Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't it June? June follows May.
Last I checked, yes.
Yeah, last you checked, right?
Yeah.
So are we due an unclassified public report next month?
Well, I believe that they were given something, and that was kind of tying into Politico's reporting, that they were given the non-public version. I don't remember the sequence of events, but the non-public version, that update has occurred. The next public one, I don't know off the top of my head what it was, but I think it's up and coming. the reason why I don't know off the top of my head is to be blunt, I'm not really excited about it, simply because I feel we will just get kind of a rehash of last year's report. What I'm more excited about are literally the classified elements that are given to Congress that generally aren't fully classified. So just because you have a classified top secret document doesn't mean all elements on that are classified, but they just don't release it. And my case in point is the classified version of last year's report that I was able to get. And we were able to learn quite a bit more, but in the same respect, learn what is classified, what exactly they don't want to tell us. My biggest surprise was the shapes of UFOs and UAP. And that was a big kind of, I think, surprise that they wouldn't even tell you what the shapes were. Now, some might say, well, they can't show you the photos or screen grabs from a video, and that would be classified, and that's fine. But actually, the textual descriptions of the shapes were also classified. So they don't even want to go there.
Can't you appeal that page?
I did. No, I appealed the entire release.
Right.
It became a lengthy appeal, but what I did was I broke down all of the redactions. And there were some that, look, I understand secrecy to the point that I don't always like it, but I can understand it. So I didn't fight every single redaction, but a lot of them I did, and the shapes were absolutely one of them, because I felt that description with the statement that they could not associate any of them to classified U.S. military technology, and on top of that could not attribute them to a foreign power, that if those two statements are true, a shape would not tread into classified territory.
Why would it?
Right. Now, do I agree with the first two statements? No, I do believe they are lying. But operating off the assumption that they're not lying, I believe my appeal should at least get something. So that is in a small nutshell of kind of how I fought that. I used their own words against them, because you can't classify something you just don't know. You know, don't tell me the sensor name, that's fine, or the sensor that captured it, or the instrumentation. I get that. That's secrecy that sometimes I don't like, but
Sure.
I understand it. But don't tell me you have absolutely no idea what it is. It's not classified U.S. tech. It's not a platform from another foreign government or military. So you can't tell me in the same breath all of that is true, but then go, oh, we can't tell you that because it's classified. The shape is classified. It's silly, to be honest with you. And I've seen evidence that they are maintaining that secrecy, but I'm fighting it nonetheless.
What if that image was the UFO shapes poster you can buy on Amazon?
Is that the one where under every one is weather balloon?
Yeah,
no matter what the shape of weather balloon. I like that one.
Oh man, that wouldn't surprise me. By the way, this came in from Daryl, and thank you for this, Daryl. I just want to get this in really quick. John, JFK, what can you still not review?
It's a great question, Daryl. It's a loaded one too, but in a nutshell, when Trump had put the essentially the order out there for them to declassify everything, what was surprising was Trump eventually agreed with the pushback by the intelligence community to not declassify everything. So the man who vowed to drain the swamp and turn everything upside down ended up agreeing with the secrecy. What exactly that material was is kind of a guess. We don't really know. We do know it totals likely tens of thousands of pages. I mean, there's quite a bit that the National Archives are still holding on to. And I forget what the next date is, but we did see a release last year, I think the date was, which I was right there to archive and make searchable, but they are still withholding information. So to your question, what exactly it is that we can't review, it's anybody's guess. We don't really know. But every time they do kind of let some of these documents go into the public sphere, we do learn some nuggets here or there. But still kind of surprising that after all these decades, they're still not wanting to tell us what's going on.
Have you seen the new Oliver Stone documentary?
The new one I have not, no.
Yeah, go check it out. It's worth it.
I'll definitely do that.
It's the thing is, I think that the more that we look at this, there was just more people involved. That's it. There's just no way that this was just resting on one man's shoulders. It's not that. And I think that is what you can't review is who else. I mean, who was Oswald communicating with? Was there a second gun or two or three? Was it Soviet? Was it something else? Was it the mafia? Was it that? I mean, there's just so many possibilities here. But it's just Oswald by himself. That's the part. It's just it just doesn't sit right with me. So
no, and there's a lot that doesn't. Yeah, there's a lot that doesn't sit right with that whole story. And I'm always a firm believer that when you deal with document caches like all the JFK assassination files, that there's a lot outside of that in my opinion may even be more interesting. Where I discovered Johnny Roselli has tons of files that have never seen the light of day before. And he's obviously someone who was entrenched with many different sinister operations with the CIA and so on. So you look at all these different names and there's a lot of documents that, in my opinion, probably never made it over to the Warren Commission, that maybe even never made it to the National Archives, that are just sitting there in archives boxes that are just collecting dust. And I think that there's more answers or at least some of the unanswered questions that we haven't found yet. But I think there's more answers outside of that main cache of records that are pretty tough to come by, but they're there. And the Roselli files, I forget how many thousands they told me there were, but it just comes down to money and waiting years for them to review it if you decided to move forward.
Yeah, there's so much stuff to talk about when it comes to JFK, but you know what? I'm just a guy, and like anybody else, I like guns and bullets and things and playing cowboys and all that stuff. You look at the magic bullet, there's not a scratch on it, right? And this thing, bounced through 2 bodies and 15 bones and everything else. And it's perfect. I don't know, man. I don't know. And how it was found, after the fact, and the chain of custody that went through. Put everything else aside. Just, okay, all right. But that bullet doesn't make any sense to me, man. It just doesn't.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that doesn't make sense about the whole story. And I mean, who knows what happens on this next deadline, if we'll learn more about what Oswald was really doing or who was communicating with Oswald. And
isn't everybody dead? Right? I mean,
you think? I mean, I believe that it was planned that once Jackie had died, that a lot, if not all of the material, and they pushed that deadline too. So
right.
A lot of people thought, because a lot of those people were still around for many years, they thought a lot of those people were still around, that they would declassify once they were gone. Well, there's really no, who's left. I don't really know any major players that are still left when it comes to that story. So how many generations do you have to go down before you finally say, okay, fine, here's all the secrets, I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you for this, Grant. John, thank you for your continued dedication to FOIA and for being a bastion for transparency. Is bastion the last? Are you what is bastion? What's the actual definition? What pending request appeals are you most hopeful for?
Well, hello to Grant. He's one of my favorite people in Australia. And what am I most hopeful for? There's a lot that I'm going for, and I'm excited about many different things in different ways. I think the appeal on the UAP classified report, the one that I submitted, I feel has a good chance at getting us some kind of a glimpse underneath those shapes, which I think would really help excel this story. I really do. I mean, I think there's a reason why they're keeping them secret, and I think I put up a good enough case to to get those partially declassified. Some of the cases that I have go into the emails. I know I've already said it, but the emails really give you a certain picture. And I just got word this morning from the Navy that there's about 5 different requests of a very important person involved in this story that I've hit with requests on their email box that are pretty much done. So from what I understand, there's a final legal review and I should get them. If what I think is there, it's going to be a big glimpse into potentially going back to the ATIP days, but more so the UAP task force days, and what exactly they were doing. So I'm pretty hopeful about that.
Now, you answered that like Lou Elizondo.
How's that? What
you
did
didn't
I do?
say anything.
Well, but that's the thing. I can't overly promise either because I don't know the results. But per his question, what do I have open? And that's part of the fun, but also the frustration with FOIA because you have absolutely no idea where you're going to end up. Right. So I don't want you to think I'm dodging the question, but there's no way to tell. I mean, unless you're going for a specific document that you know exists. And I do have cases like that. For example, leaked documents, leaked emails, where you try and get them declassified. The Harry Reid letter is a prime example of that, where I was trying to get information associated with that. So I knew it existed, but what else was there? That kind of stuff. Other than that, with the FOIA, it's a crapshoot. It really is, because at the end of the day, you have no idea what you're going to get, which is why after almost 26 years, when I get either an email that comes in or a physical package, box, envelope, whatever, it doesn't matter who it is, but if it's related to FOIA, I am a little kid in a candy store because I have no idea what's in it. Sometimes it's 1,000 pages, sometimes it's 4. I got a request, which I'm actually going to be publishing this probably tomorrow by the end of the week, but over 800 pages of NASA UAP related emails that they released to me. And it's only the first release. There's actually quite a bit more. So again, these are just, you never know what you get. It's a kid in a candy store when I get to open it.
Let's take a break. I'm going to talk you into overtime because I want to talk more about this release.
You always do.
Well,
you don't even ask anymore. You're like, you'll stay for overtime. It'll be fine. You'll say yes.
Yeah. It's kind of that's exactly the case, actually. So let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, John's with me on the screen at the same time. I'm not ready to say goodnight. So we will be right back overtime with John Greenwald right after this short break. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the X.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Billy Carson, founder and CEO of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv is the fastest growing and one of the most watched networks in the world. I would like to personally invite you to check out our expanding library of TV, film, lectures, and special presentations. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv has over 6,000 videos covering lost history, health, UFOs, spirituality, and our future. We are committed to our community, and with my personal invitation, you can, right now, get your free 30-day membership at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Your own library of information starts today at ForbiddenKnowledge.tv.
Your 1 million gigawatt paranormal powerhouse, KUNX-DB, the X.
Are you ready to read about true paranormal events? Unex Media publishes nonfiction books about UFOs, ghosts and haunted places, time anomalies, cryptid creatures, and more. Just like KUNX-DB Radio, it's all about unexplained phenomena. Visit www.unxmedia.com to see our list of great book titles by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, Gene Walker, Devin Listrom, Wayne Lawrence, Bill Spicer, and yours truly, Margie Kay. That's unxmedia.com.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JFK
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, John Greenwald. It's the first time John and I have been on video together. Great conversation tonight. And here's the deal. I wasn't going to let John go. And, John, I want a little sneak preview about this thing that you're going to publish tomorrow. And I want to understand you clearly. You said 800 documents from the Navy?
No, from NASA.
From NASA.
Yeah, so I've posted selections of these before. It's nothing groundbreaking, so please don't. I don't want to make it seem like a tease that it's going to change the planet, but rather it's just kind of an inside look at NASA communicating about UAP. But on top of that, it ties into a case that is actually still ongoing that has produced a couple thousand that they have found. And so they charged me, I forget how many hundreds of dollars, but I agreed to pay. I think it was over 300. But they are charging me for it. And I'm waiting for the releases. So we'll see what comes out of that. But I've already had previous releases, one of which was over 800 pages. Another one was another NASA press officer. I've got all those going online as well. So some I've highlighted before, just zeroing in on a page here or there. But this is actually the full dump.
So in your request, you've requested everything that NASA has communicated with UAP in the communication?
Correct. Yeah, there was a list of NASA personnel. So I had published some, I believe, last year.
I remember.
And had made discoveries like the director, Bill Nelson, being briefed on UAP, the date he was briefed. Why that kind of stuff is important is then you start going after the material that was involved in that particular briefing. Or if you find out that there are meetings, you can go after material like that. So it really gives a lot of leads for further cases, but then it reveals a lot of information as well. So it's kind of the progression over multiple cases to get to a point where then I filed a case. I actually filed like 10 cases last year, but they didn't like that. So they aggregated them all into one, which then usually results in a lot of fees. But they said that they were too similar. What I did was like 10 different cases, 10 different NASA personnel, all essentially searching for the same thing. So they've aggregated it all into one, are charging me hundreds of dollars, but they found thousands of pages. So we'll see. So I, as of about 3 weeks ago, had filed the paperwork that said, yes, I will pay. I've already filed the deposit. They confirmed receipt, and they are reviewing the material. So there's still a lot more to come, but this is the first dump in those cases.
Now, did this stem off of the communications that you had published earlier that were requesting the classified PowerPoint presentation?
So there was an indicator that I believe it was a NASA case that produced that existed, but likely that will not come from NASA. So when dealing with the FOIA, you have to figure out who the OCA was. The OCA stands for the Original Classifying Authority. So let's just say a quick example. If the CIA creates a report and sends it over to the NSA cannot, through FOIA, release it. It has to go back to the CIA. They have to look it over, and they are what's called the release authority because they were the OCA. So with NASA, yes, it was revealed that there was not only a PowerPoint presentation, but also a video of the classified UAP briefing itself. And I believe that they made that so if someone's schedule didn't align, or in the time of COVID with telework and stuff like that, that in a secure setting, they could just pull up the video and watch the briefing. And you better believe the moment that I saw that there was a video of the classified briefing, I filed a case for it. That's the first time in writing I've ever seen that a video of the briefing existed. We knew about PowerPoint presentations. We knew about in-person briefings, but never that they were actually videotaped and available. So I am going after that. Will I get the entire presentation? I don't know. Will I get part of it? I hope so.
The ability to do that, this is something that I think I would like you to answer this. You develop a spidey sense over the years, right? And so you see a document like this where, I mean, clearly there's a request for this classified PowerPoint, reaching out to, was it the UAP task force?
At the time, yeah.
Yeah, and on behalf of Bill Nelson, right, that he wanted to review this, the classified portion of this PowerPoint for their meeting that was about to go down at NASA that was covering UAPs. This is pretty significant stuff, right? And so,
yeah.
You know, right then you've got a path to go down.
Correct. Yeah. The leads are amazing when it comes to that. And one of the other things, and I'm paraphrasing it here because I don't have the document to read to you, but essentially what it was they had offered a unclassified brief to Bill Nelson to kind of review UAP information. And Jay Stratton, who was the Navy guy who was labeled in these NASA documents as the head of the UAP task force at the time, essentially said that it would not show him anything, that it would not give him what he wanted. I believe they used the phrasing "scratch the itch" because he wanted to know more. But regardless, it was very telling because here Bill Nelson wanted to know more. There was unclassified / public material that he could review, and the head of the UAP task force said, "No, that probably won't teach him anything." So I asked the question, then why are we getting so excited about these unclassified public reports when essentially the head of the UAP task force at the time is saying, it's not really going to teach you anything? So it to me, it's an interesting window in how everybody communicates on the inside and how they view the material that they release to the public, but also that of which they hold as classified.
Well, and this also predated by a number of months Bill Nelson's now famous interview that he did with the university on the East Coast at the tail end of this, which was for the political science department of this university, right? The politics behind NASA, which was all great. But it was that last 10 minutes where Bill fully revealed that he believes ET is visiting Earth. That's what they're doing. They're out there searching. And if there's anybody out there that is working at this, it is NASA. And he went much further than, I'm paraphrasing right now. He went very direct in this subject. And these communications at NASA about UAPs show that Bill absolutely needs all the information he can get on this, and this is what he does as the administrator of NASA.
Yeah, and it was an interesting window. I will say I'm glad to see the administrator of NASA hold that viewpoint. A lot of people were surprised. I will say I was surprised to hear him say it, but in the same respect, not. Simply because if you're the head and director of NASA, I would hope that you would hold those beliefs that there's life out there and potentially traveling the cosmos, because why else would you lead a space agency like that? You know, I mean, you're going to be more motivated if you have those beliefs. So I was excited to see him say that. And I think rightfully so. Anybody who leads that space agency, if they are pursuing astrobiological efforts, space exploration, deep space exploration, whatever they've got their mind set on, I would hope that they would think that there is somebody on the other side that we may meet one day, or a microbe that we'll discover, whatever it might be, that they believe that, as they should.
Now, do you think that NASA, I'm talking about inside of this community, will turn their image around, right? Because this community, you know, NASA is an acronym for never a straight answer, right?
Yeah.
And this community has always looked at NASA as somebody that has, let's just say, hidden things, and that they know more. Possibly they know everything, and they're not telling the public at all, when it's supposed to be a civilian branch that is independent of the government, right? And is there a way for NASA to turn that around? And is that what Bill is effectively doing?
Well, I don't want to belittle what they're doing, but I will say that this kind of stuff can absolutely be used as a PR effort, that they can utilize the discussion about UAP and renew the image of NASA and fix that a little bit. So I think in the back of their minds, I hope that they still care about this phenomena. These phenomena, I believe that they do, but in the same respect, it could be utilized from a public relations standpoint. And if they do, that's fine. Hopefully they will turn it around and not have the same secrecy as they seemingly have had for quite a few decades about astronaut encounters. I mean, obviously we've had a lot of astronauts come forward about encounters, and NASA never really wants to talk about it. So if this is what it takes for them to fix their image and they want to be more transparent and talk, I'm all for it. Let them utilize it for their PR efforts.
I just got this from Pat. A question for the king of FOIA. Yeah, I'll go with that. I'll get you one of those Burger King paper crowns. You can wear that next time you're on the show. Have you ever been hassled or had strange encounters while doing the documents? Okay, you can take that question two ways. Which way do you want to answer it first?
I mean, I assume hassled as in like, does the government hassle me about what I do? That's generally a very common question. And the answer is no. Through the act itself that I utilize, they can ask clarity questions, but they can't start drilling you on what you're going to do with the information or why you're asking for it or whatever. They can clarify, but again, they don't hassle on that front. When it comes to like more of the sinister Men in Black type stories, knocks on my door, hey, you can't do this. I never have. And I would think that if that stuff really was happening, then it would have happened by now. I did expect it post 9/11. And the reason why I say that is after 9/11 happened in 2001, I had already been filing FOIAs for about 5 years. And the entire event caused them to go back and reclassify a lot of material that they had declassified before. 9/11 changed everything on multiple fronts. And so they reclassified a lot of information, and I thought, hey, you know what? I probably have a document somewhere that may tie into this type of stuff, because I was going after not just UFO stuff. I was going after nuclear weapons documents and reports, biological, chemical weapons, a lot of stuff that, hey, if they were a little bit too loosey-goosey with it, they didn't want it to fall in the wrong hands. And it didn't happen then either, which I was kind of surprised at because I thought it would. So long-winded way of saying, I wish I had a cool story for you, but really they've left me alone. And I think that from what I've learned over the years, I don't do things illegally. And I think that they know that. I'm not a WikiLeaks. I'm not a Julian Assange. I don't have people leaking stuff to me and me turning around and publishing it. That I just don't believe in that way. So I stick with it legally. I understand that there are humans on the other side of these FOIA offices. Sometimes they're very frustrating, but I do understand that they're human and have emotions, and me being mean to them is not going to get me anywhere. And I think vice versa as well. So I think we maintain a somewhat good relationship in that respect. And some agencies definitely hate me. I am on certain lists. That's not a guess. That is a proven fact. The FBI has me on what's called a Vexum list, which is a very short list of people that create a burden for them with filing FOIAs and the information and the attention that I can bring to it. And I also discovered that the IRS actually has a very similar list as well. Obviously not for my UFO stories when it comes to the IRS, but I was digging in through some of the former IRS directors' emails. And I guess I was kind of excited about this, but also I was a little bit unnerved by it. I was the only individual that was named on the list. Everything else were news organizations like Washington Post and a couple others that were doing some more heavy-hitting reporting on IRS-related issues. But I was the only person, which was, again, exciting, a badge of honor, but disconcerting in the same respect. So, you know, I try and maintain the good relationships, but I know that I also annoy the bejeebers out of quite a few of them as well.
How do you know, John? I mean, I've always pictured whatever FOIA office, right, that you're, and they're sitting there and they're manning the email. How do you even know they're paying attention? How, you know, where they're just not sitting there laughing. Yeah, we'll get to this request, right? And roll their eyes. How do you even know that they're paying attention or that they even care?
No, it's a great question. So by law, they have a certain amount of time to respond to you. So if they don't come back to you in 20 business days with at least an interim response, you can go back to them and say, hey, you're ignoring me. And if they continue to ignore you, there are avenues to pursue to get help. And there are outside agencies that help you through that process. So when it comes to that part, there are ways that you can fight it. But then what happens after they do that initial response? Like, John, we received your message, your case. Here's your case number. We're going to get, you're in line, essentially. And how do you know how long it's really going to take, and when can you fight it? And there's really no right answer for that. Right now, I can tell you, if I file a case to the DOD tonight, tomorrow there's about 3,500 cases ahead of mine. And so you go in what's called a first in, first out line. And that's how most agencies operate, that you just start going in the backlog. And that backlog could take years. There are requests that I filed back in 2018 with the Defense Intelligence Agency on OSAP, which is the Bigelow Aerospace program that is said to have utilized Skinwalker Ranch and paranormal-like research. They're just starting to answer those. And that's the 1,500-page story that recently came out, which, again, in UFO fashion, I said it earlier, I'll say it again, was just full of wrong messages and misinformation. The media coverage of that was awful. But it takes years sometimes. My record is 14 and a half years. I just posted documents in the last week that were over 7 and 8 years to process. So when you look at that and you realize there will be a day, I hope it's a long time from now, but I will file a case and I'll be dead by the time it comes in, you know, and it's awful to think about, but it's like, that's how long it takes. So how do you fight that? And there's really no right answer. There are avenues, which is a conversation that gets a little complex, but there are avenues to fight it, but you can only fight so much because the FOIA system, I don't consider it broken, but it's definitely injured in many ways. And the backlogs and the understaffing of offices is definitely one of those injuries.
Now, your passwords and everything, you're going to make sure that your son gets those?
Yeah. And he'll hopefully take the reins.
Yeah,
and get
carry
interested,
the torch.
But
Carry
yeah,
the torch.
I hope that that day is long in the future, but it always is in the back of my mind, like, how long is this really going to take?
Right.
And it gets frustrating sometimes.
I've got this, it's a bit of a strange question. Maybe you can make sense out of it. This is from Deb. John, have you ever used FOIA with the Bureau of Land Management regarding Bigfoot?
I'd have to look back. I don't think BLM, but I will say that I got the FBI file on Bigfoot and Sasquatch, what they labeled as Sasquatch. That is a file that exists. There is information in there. And the quick backstory is the motivation for that was I learned that the Army Corps of Engineers had created a state atlas for the state of Washington. Right. And within there, they explored the flora and fauna of Washington state. And they had a page in there on Bigfoot, that was part of Washington state. And they wrote it, and it was very much more written like it really was real. I mean, they talk about the legend and myth aspect to it, but it even talked about a piece of Bigfoot hair, a sample that was sent to the FBI, analyzed, and it was not matched to any known living being or animal or anything at the time. And it was not a joke. And I thought, there's no way that this is real. Yeah. And so that's when I filed the FOIA case to the FBI. That's when I got the FBI files on Bigfoot and Sasquatch, but was missing was the test results from what was being referenced in this state atlas written by the Army Corps of Engineers. I appealed, lost it. They said that there's nothing there in addition to what I got. So it's like the documents are just gone. So either the Army Corps of Engineers made it all up, or those documents were destroyed, and I side with the latter. But they had those interesting results all printed. So I'll look back to see if I ever file with BLM to see if maybe they have something else. But the FBI ones are definitely worth checking out.
So Zenza Bill says, you're only 40, John. You've got plenty of miles left.
I appreciate that. I just, in the interest of transparency, just turned 41 about 2 weeks ago. So, you know, down this hill, going up another one, I guess. But
it's we've known each other for such a long time, but I remember finding out your age, 20 years ago. It's like, no way. And so that would have made you 20. Right?
Yeah.
It's just like, wait a minute, and I just the age difference is mind blowing. I've always looked at you as being older and seasoned, but what do they say? You're an old soul, right?
I've been called worse, so I'll take that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've obviously been around for quite a while. Some of my fun stories was when I was lecturing in Laughlin, Nevada for the UFO conference that was out there for quite some time. And when I started lecturing for them, my first lecture was for MUFON when I was 18. And Stanton always told me, he says, I'm the longest running lecturer for MUFON. He says, you're now the youngest that has ever, and that was something very cool that Stanton told me. He said I held the record for that. But when we were lecturing in Nevada, it was held at a casino, and I wasn't old enough to be in the casino. So I had to make sure I couldn't even linger in parts of where the conference was because I wasn't old enough,
so you got off the elevator and went right up the escalator.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And if I linger, it was Laughlin, so it was a little bit less strict than Vegas, but those were fun days. It was always a good time. I miss that.
Okay. What time tomorrow does this new article drop?
Well, don't quote me. I'm hoping it should be tomorrow, but now you're going to pressure me into it. It's not an article either. Again, I don't want to tease it like it's going to change humanity, but rather more of the background and then data dump of what NASA has given me. There is really kind of an interesting one document, which I'll tell you because I don't want to make it seem like I'm teasing. But in short, there was internal banter about an event that was going to include Christopher Mellon and Robert Powell. And I assumed that was a SCU event. And I started digging in. And on the contrary, this was never talked about before, nor was it SCU. And two personnel at NASA were talking about attending. So I have some on the record statements from Robert Powell, which are pretty interesting. He didn't really want to talk about this, but he felt that since it was revealed through FOIA that he would talk a little bit about it. And to me, it's kind of interesting. I asked Christopher Mellon for some comment on it, and he wouldn't. So whatever this is, there's other events going on that involve potentially NASA people, but nobody would tell me if they went. And NASA also got back to me and they said we cannot speak for them because they're no longer with the agency. Go figure. So that's what the FOIA can reveal. Events that we never knew actually happened.
That's one of my favorite things about the Black Vault. I've been doing this for years. Is I like documentaries. I like documents. I like nonfiction. That's where my heart lies. And I can just go and read document after document after document after document. And I'm going to do it again tomorrow. Thank you so much, John, for taking up so much time during the day.
No, thank you. I really appreciate the time.
John, you are the absolute very best. John Greenwald. And with that, I got to get out of here and get straight to the credits and get out of here. Tomorrow night, I want to remind everybody what's going on. It is Jason Quit. And tomorrow night, we're going to be discussing astral and lucid dreaming. All of that tomorrow night with Jason Quit. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitola, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is only copyrighted 2022 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black of the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night with Jason Quit, I want everybody to be safe. It's time to fade to black.